Have you ever been looked at like you were dirt on someone's shoe? Like your worth was measured entirely by the label on your handbag? Sophia walked into that dinner, thinking she was meeting her future mother-in-law. Instead, she was served a three-course meal of humiliation. Victoria Sterling called her a parasite, a gold digger, trash. She thought Sophia was after her son's trust fund. But Victoria made one fatal calculation. She didn't check the Forbes list. Because the woman she just kicked out of her house didn't want the money, she owned the bank. Buckle up, because this isn't just a breakup story. It's a corporate takeover. The humidity in the Hamptons always felt different than in the city, heavier, thicker, smelling of sea salt and old money. Sophia gripped the leather handle of her bag until her knuckles turned white. It wasn't a Birkin, it wasn't a Kelly. It was a vintage saddlebag she'd found at a flea market in Brooklyn, scuffed at the edges but loved. Next to the gleaming chrome of the Sterling family's gates, however, it looked like something dragged out of a dumpster. "You're shaking," Liam said, his hand covering hers, on the gear shift of his rental convertible. He smiled, that easy golden boy smile that had charmed her 6 months ago in a crowded coffee shop on 4th and Main. "Soph, it's just dinner. My mother is intense, but she loves me. She'll love you." "Your mother is Victoria Sterling," Sophia reminded him, her voice tight. "She doesn't just love things, Liam. She acquires them, or she destroys them." Liam laughed, dismissing her anxiety with the privilege of someone who had never had to fight for a seat at the table. "You've been reading too many tabloids. She's just a mom who happens to run a real estate conglomerate." Sophia looked out the window as the iron gates swung open. She didn't tell him that she hadn't read the tabloids. She had read the quarterly earnings reports. She knew that Sterling and Co. was over-leveraged in commercial retail. She knew their stock had dipped 4% last quarter. She knew Victoria Sterling was desperate for a merger to save face before the board meeting in October. Sophia knew these things not because she was a spy, but because business was her language. But to Liam, she was just Sophia, the girl who painted watercolors in a shared studio apartment and wore thrift store flannels. He didn't know about the trust. He didn't know about Archimedes. He didn't know that the studio apartment was one of 50 properties she owned under a shell company. She had wanted him to love her, not the portfolio. "Ready?" Liam asked as they pulled up the circular driveway. The house was a monstrosity of white marble and columns, looking more like a government building than a home. Standing on the steps was Victoria Sterling. She was smaller than she looked in magazines, but she took up all the oxygen in the driveway. She wore a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than Sophia's fictional rent, and her expression was one of polite, weaponized tolerance. "Liam," Victoria said, ignoring Sophia entirely to embrace her son. "You're late. The roast is drying out." "Traffic on the LIE, Mom," Liam said, pulling away and gesturing to Sophia. "Mom, this is Sophia." Finally, Victoria turned. Her eyes were like scanners at a high-security checkpoint. They started at Sophia's scuffed boots, traveled up the frayed hem of her jeans, which she'd thought were chic, but now felt underdressed, and landed on her face. There was no warmth, no welcome, just a cold calculation of value. "Sophia," Victoria said. She didn't extend a hand. Liam mentioned, "You're an artist." "That's right," Sophia said, forcing a smile. She kept her chin high. "I work in mixed media." "Mixed media," Victoria repeated, tasting the words like sour milk. "How quaint. Shall we? The Caldwells are already inside. I want you to meet Preston's daughter, Ashley. She just finished her MBA at Wharton." Sophia felt the first sting. The Caldwells, a rival development family, and Ashley the perfect pedigree match. This wasn't a dinner, it was an ambush. The dining room was cavernous, lit by a chandelier that looked heavy enough to kill someone if it fell. The table was set for 6. Liam, Sophia, Victoria, her silent husband Richard, and the Caldwells Preston, a heavy-set man with a red face, and Ashley, who looked like a younger, hungrier clone of Victoria. Dinner was an exercise in exclusion. Victoria and Preston talked loudly about zoning laws in Tribeca and the rising cost of steel. Ashley chimed in with perfectly rehearsed anecdotes about her internship at Goldman Sachs. Liam tried to steer the conversation, but he was drowned out. Sophia ate her salad in silence. She knew the zoning laws in Tribeca better than Preston did. She had just blocked a permit there last week to preserve a historic park, but she bit her tongue. So, Sophia, Preston Caldwell, boomed suddenly, turning his bloodshot eyes on her. Victoria tells us, you live in Bushwick. Gentrification treating you well? It's vibrant, Sophia said politely. And how do you pay for this? Vibrancy? Victoria interjected, swirling her wine. Does painting pay the bills these days? Or are you relying on the kindness of strangers? The table went quiet. Liam dropped his fork. Mom, I'm just asking, Liam, Victoria said, her voice dripping with faux innocence. It's a valid question. You have a trust fund, a significant one. It attracts a certain type of moth to the flame. Sophia put her napkin down. Her heart was hammering, but her hands were steady. I pay my own way, Mrs. Sterling. Please, Victoria scoffed. She signaled to a waiter, who handed her a thin manila folder. She tossed it onto the table. It slid across the mahogany and hit Sophia's wineglass with a clink. What is this? Liam asked, his face flushing red. A background check, Victoria said calmly. I run one on everyone who enters this house. Sophia Miller. No known employment record for the last 3 years. No credit cards in your name. A rented apartment in a building that has been cited for 12 code violations. You are a ghost, Sophia. Or, more accurately, a leech. Mom, stop it. Liam stood up. Sit down, Liam, Victoria snapped, her mask of civility cracking. She stood up too, leaning over the table, glaring at Sophia. I know what you are. You found a nice, soft boy with a heavy wallet, and you dug your claws in. You think because you have big eyes and a sob story about being an artist that you can waltz into the Sterling dynasty? She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. This family built this city, Victoria hissed. We deal in steel and concrete. We don't deal in charity cases. I will not let my son's inheritance be drained by some street rat nobody who can't even afford a decent pair of shoes. She pointed a manicured finger at the door. Get out, before I call security and have you removed for trespassing. Liam looked at Sophia, his eyes wide and panicked. He looked like a child caught between two parents. Soph, tell her she's wrong. Tell her you work. Sophia looked at Liam. She saw the doubt in his eyes. He didn't defend her. He asked her to prove herself. That hurt more than anything, Victoria said. Sophia stood up slowly. She picked up the folder, the background check, that was so comically incomplete because her privacy team cost more than Victoria's entire legal department. You missed a few pages? Sophia said softly. Get out, Victoria screamed. Sophia turned to Liam. Are you coming? Liam looked at his mother, then at the Caldwells, watching with glee, then at his inheritance, invisible but heavy in the room. He looked down at the table. I can't, Soph. She's my mother. Maybe you should go. Just for tonight. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia nodded. Once. Okay, she whispered. She turned and walked out of the dining room. She walked down the long marble hallway, past the portraits of Sterling ancestors, who looked just as miserable as Victoria. She walked out the front door, down the steps, and into the humid Hampton night. She didn't cry. Not yet. She pulled her phone from her dumpster bag. It was a custom encrypted device. She dialed a number that only 5 people in the world had. Yes, Miss Miller? A deep voice answered on the first ring. Marcus, Sophia said, her voice turning into steel. Initialize the acquisition of Sterling & Co. The hostility level, ma'am? Sophia looked back at the mansion, glowing with golden light, filled with people who thought they owned the world. Total, she said. Burn it to the ground. The black Lincoln Navigator that pulled up to the curb, 5 blocks away from the Sterling estate, didn't belong to a rideshare app. The driver, a man with a neck thick as a tree trunk and eyes that missed nothing, stepped out and opened the rear door. Rough night, Miss Miller? He asked, his voice gravelly but kind. Drive, Silas, Sophia said, sliding into the climate-controlled interior. Take me to the tower. And call Graham. Tell him to assemble the war room. I don't care that it's Sunday night. Yes, ma'am. As the car glided onto the highway, putting distance between her and the humiliation of the Sterling dinner, Sophia shed her skin. She pulled off the scuffed boots and kicked them into the corner of the cabin. She opened a hidden compartment in the armrest, revealing a bottle of sparkling water and a tablet. She wasn't Sophia Miller, struggling mixed media artist. She was Sophia van der Hoven, sole heiress to the van der Hoven shipping and banking fortune, and the founder of Chimera Capital, a private equity firm known on Wall Street as the Vulture's Nest. She had spent 6 months playing the role of a pauper. It was an experiment, a test. After her last relationship ended because the man was more interested in her board seat than her heart, she had promised herself she would find someone who loved her. Just her. She thought she found that in Liam. She unlocked her tablet. Her wallpaper was a photo of her and Liam at Coney Island, eating hot dogs. He looked so happy. You didn't fight for me, Liam, she whispered to the screen. You let her throw me out like trash. She deleted the photo. Connect me, she said to the air. The car's speaker system chirped. Sophia? A British voice filled the car. This was Graham, her chief of operations, and the only father figure she had left after her parents died in a plane crash 10 years ago. Silas says, you're coming in hot. I assume the meet the parents dinner went poorly? Victoria Sterling handed me a background check and called me a leech, Sophia said, her voice devoid of emotion. She thinks I'm after Liam's trust fund. Graham made a sound that was half laugh, half choke. His trust fund? That account barely covers your fuel costs for the jet. Did you tell her? No, Sophia said. I'm going to show her. Graham, what's the current exposure of Sterling & Co.? Give me 30 seconds. The sound of typing was furious. Okay, they are heavily leveraged on the Hudson Yards project. They have a bridge loan of $400 million maturing in 3 weeks. The lender is First City Bank. Victoria is counting on refinancing, but with the current interest rate hikes, she's shaky. Buy the debt, Sophia commanded. Excuse me? Contact First City. Offer them 105 cents on the dollar for the Sterling debt package. They'll take it to get the risk off their books. I want to own every cent she owes. Sophia, Graham warned, his tone shifting to professional caution. This is personal. You know the rules. We don't trade on emotion. This isn't emotion, Graham. It's education, Sophia said, staring at the passing lights of the New York skyline. Victoria Sterling prides herself on knowing the value of things. I'm going to teach her the price of arrogance. Buy the debt. Then trigger the covenants. I want an audit of their books. Freeze their lines of credit. And Liam? Graham asked softly. Sophia looked out the window. She saw his face again, looking down at the table, afraid to meet her eyes. Liam made his choice, she said. He chose the Sterling name. Now he gets to experience the consequences of it. By the time the navigator pulled into the private underground garage of the Van der Hoven Tower in Manhattan, Sophia was done crying. She took the private elevator to the 90th floor. The doors opened to a sleek, modern office that spanned the entire floor. Glass walls offered a 360-degree view of the city she practically owned. A team of 6 analysts was already waiting in the conference room, laptops open, coffee steaming. They stood up as she entered. She was still wearing the flannel shirt and jeans, but her posture had changed. She walked with the predatory grace of a shark entering a feeding frenzy. Sit, she said, taking the head of the table. Status. A young analyst named Sarah spoke up. We've made contact with the VP at First City. They are confused but intrigued by the offer. If we wire the funds by morning, the Sterling debt is ours. Do it, Sophia said. What else? We found something interesting in their supplier contracts, another analyst said. Sterling & Co. has been slow paying their steel contractors. They are 90 days past due. If one major supplier walks, their construction sites shut down. Sophia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Find out who the biggest supplier is. Offer them an exclusive contract with Chimera for our upcoming projects in Dubai, on the condition they cease all deliveries to Sterling, immediately pending a credit review. Graham walked in, handing her a fresh cup of espresso. You're going to bankrupt them, Sophia. No, Sophia corrected him. I'm going to buy them, for pennies. And then I'm going to fire Victoria Sterling from the company her grandfather built. She spun her chair around to face the window. Somewhere out there in the Hamptons, Victoria was probably sipping cognac, laughing about the peasant she had evicted, thinking she had saved her son. She wanted a background check, Sophia murmured. She's about to get a resume. 3 days later, the atmosphere in the Sterling & Co. executive suite was toxic. Victoria Sterling paced the length of her office, her heels clicking aggressively against the hardwood. The view from her 40th floor window usually gave her a sense of godhood, but today, the city looked like a mouth, waiting to swallow her whole. What do you mean stopped? She barked into her phone. I mean the trucks aren't moving, Mrs. Sterling. The site foreman at the Hudson Yards project shouted over the background noise of idle machinery. Kowalski Steel pulled the plug. They recall their drivers an hour ago. They said, we're on a credit hold. We are Sterling & Company. Victoria screamed. We don't get put on credit hold. Get Kowalski on the phone. Tell him I'll ruin him. She slammed the phone down. Her husband, Richard, sat on the leather sofa, looking pale. Victoria, it's not just the steel. The cement trucks canceled for the Brooklyn site too. It's coordinated. Don't be paranoid, Richard, Victoria snapped. It's just incompetence. People these days don't want to work. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Sterling, your son is here? Victoria Seal. Send him in. Liam walked in. He looked terrible. He hadn't shaved in 3 days, and his eyes were rimmed with red. He wasn't wearing his usual tailored suit, just a wrinkled polo and slacks. Still moping? Victoria asked, shuffling through papers on her desk. Honestly, Liam, it's been 3 days. You dodged a bullet. You should be thanking me. I went to her apartment, Liam said, his voice hollow. Victoria paused. You went to Bushwick? I told you to cut contact. I went to apologize, Liam said. I went to beg her to take me back, but she wasn't there. Of course she wasn't. She probably moved on to the next mark. No, Mom, you don't understand. Liam ran a hand through his hair. I knocked on the door. A guy answered. Some hipster guy. He said he's lived there for 2 years alone. He said he puts the extra room on Airbnb for weekends. Victoria froze. What? Sophia didn't live there, Liam said. She rented that room for the weekends I visited. The studio where she painted? It was a rental. The landlord said she paid in cash, under the name Doe. Victoria slowly sat down. A cold prickle of unease crawled up her spine. Why would she lie about being poor? Unless she was hiding from the law. I told you, Liam. A criminal. A grifter. Or maybe she was hiding from us, Liam said softly. Maybe she didn't want us to know who she really is. And who is she? Victoria scoffed, regaining her composure. A secret princess? Please. She's a fraud, Liam. She faked a poverty lifestyle to garner sympathy. It's a classic manipulation tactic. Before Liam could respond, the office door flew open. It wasn't an assistant. It was Preston Caldwell, the father of the girl Victoria wanted Liam to marry. He looked sweaty and panicked. Preston? Victoria stood up. I'm in a meeting. Screw your meeting, Victoria, Preston panted. Have you seen the news? I've been busy fixing a supply chain issue. What news? Preston grabbed the remote from her desk and turned on the wall-mounted TV. It was tuned to CNBC. The ticker at the bottom was red. The headline read, Mystery Firm Acquires $400 M sterling debt. Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. That's impossible. First City holds our paper. We have a relationship. Not anymore, Preston said grimly. First City sold it this morning to a holding company called Alethea Global. Alethea? Victoria frowned. I've never heard of them. Nobody has. It's a shell. But here is the kicker, Victoria. They just issued a press release. They are declaring Sterling & Co. in default of the loan covenants. Default? Victoria shrieked. We're not in default. We have 3 weeks. Read the fine print, Preston yelled. The covenant says, if production stops on any major site for more than 24 hours, the lender can call the full amount due immediately. Your sites have been shut down all morning because of the steel issue. Victoria slumped back into her chair. The pieces slammed together in her mind. The steel suppliers stopping, the cement trucks, the debt sale. It wasn't bad luck. It was a hit. Who is Alethea Global? She whispered. I made some calls, Preston said. It traces back to a private equity firm, Chimera Capital. Richard gasped from the couch. Chimera? The vulture's nest? They eat companies like us for breakfast. Why are they targeting us? The phone on Victoria's desk rang. It wasn't the internal line. It was her private red phone, the one only top-tier investors and lawyers had the number for. She stared at it like it was a bomb. She picked it up. This is Victoria Sterling. Good afternoon, Mrs. Sterling, a crisp British voice said. It was Graham. I am calling on behalf of Alethea Global, the new holder of your primary debt obligations. You can't do this, Victoria hissed. I'll sue you. I'll sue you. You are currently in breach of contract, Graham interrupted calmly. The full sum of $412 million, including penalties, is due by close of business tomorrow. That's impossible, she said. We don't have that liquidity. We are aware, Graham said. However, the principal of our firm is willing to discuss an alternative to immediate foreclosure, a restructuring meeting. Fine, Victoria snapped. I'll meet your principal. Send him to my office tomorrow. I'm afraid you misunderstand the power dynamic here, Mrs. Sterling, Graham said, his voice dropping a few degrees. You don't summon us, we summon you. The meeting is in 1 hour, at the Vanderhoven Tower, penthouse suite. Do not be late. The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone. Her hand was shaking. What did they say? Liam asked, stepping forward. We have a meeting, Victoria said, her voice trembling with a rage she couldn't control. With the head of Chimera Capital. I'm coming with you, Liam said. No, Victoria said. You stay here and figure out this mess with the suppliers. This is my inheritance too, Mom. I'm coming. Victoria didn't have the energy to fight him. She grabbed her Hermes bag, the same one she had clutched while kicking Sophia out. Fine. Let's go see who thinks they can push the Sterlings around. An hour later, the elevator doors opened on the 90th floor of the Vanderhoven Tower. The space was intimidatingly silent. The floors were polished concrete, the walls sheer glass. It smelled of ozone and money. A receptionist with glasses sat at a minimalist desk. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Sterling, you are expected. She pointed to the double doors at the end of the hall. Victoria straightened her blazer. She fixed her hair. She put on her war face. She walked down the hall with Liam trailing behind her. She was going to crush this financier. She would offer them equity. She would charm them. She would threaten them. She would do whatever it took. She threw the double doors open. The conference room was massive. At the far end, facing away from them, was a high-backed leather chair looking out over the city. We are here, Victoria announced, her voice booming. Now, let's cut the theatrics. You bought my debt. You want a payout. Let's talk numbers. The chair didn't move. I suggest you turn around, Victoria said, her patience snapping. I am Victoria Sterling, and I demand to know who I am speaking to. You know, a voice came from the chair. Liam froze. He knew that voice. It was the voice that used to whisper to him in the morning. No, Liam whispered. It can't be. The chair slowly swiveled around. Sophia sat there. She was wearing a white bespoke suit that fit her like armor. Her hair was slicked back, sharp and severe. On her wrist was a Patek Philippe watch worth more than Liam's car. Her eyes were dry, clear, and cold as ice. She rested her elbows on the table and steepled her fingers. Hello, Victoria, Sophia said. Hello, Liam. Please, take a seat. We have a lot to discuss regarding my empire. Victoria's mouth fell open. For the first time in her life, she was speechless. Sophia smiled. What's the matter, Victoria? Sophia asked. You look like you've seen a ghost. Or a gold digger? The silence in the conference room was heavier than the marble table that separated them. Victoria Sterling blinked. Once. Twice. Her brain was misfiring, trying to reconcile the image of the girl in the flannel shirt, the charity case she'd evicted from her home, with the titan of industry sitting before her. "This is a joke," Victoria finally managed to say. Her voice was thin, lacking its usual boom. "Is this a prank show? Where are the cameras?" Sophia didn't blink. She tapped a finger on the tablet in front of her. The massive screen on the wall behind her flickered to life. It displayed a complex web of corporate entities, all feeding into one central hub, Chimera Capital, and at the top of the pyramid, listed as majority shareholder and CEO, Sophia van der Hoven. "My mother was a van der Hoven," Sophia said, her voice conversational, almost bored. "Dutch shipping. My father was Miller. Tech patents. When they died, they left me everything, including the good sense to know when someone is drowning." She looked at Victoria. "You are drowning, Victoria. You lied," Liam stammered. He was gripping the back of a chair, his face pale. "You told me you were a barista. You told me you struggled with rent." "I never told you I was a barista," Sophia corrected him, without looking at him. "I said I liked coffee, and I never said I struggled with rent. I said rent in New York is criminal, which it is. I own 15 apartment buildings. I know exactly how criminal it is. You deceived us." Victoria slammed her hand on the table, finding her anger again. "You entered my home under false pretenses. This is fraud." "No," Sophia said, her voice turning sharp. "I entered your home as your son's girlfriend. I didn't bring my portfolio because I wanted to be judged on my character, again, and I was. Just as you were judged on yours." Sophia stood up. She walked to the window, looking down at the city. "Let's skip the moral outrage, Victoria. It doesn't suit you, and frankly, you can't afford it. We are here to talk business. Specifically, the $412 million you owe me." Victoria straightened her spine. She was on familiar ground now. Business. She could do business. "Fine. You bought the debt. It was a hostile move, but I respect the strategy. We can restructure. I'll offer you 4% equity in Sterling & Co. in exchange for a 5-year extension on the loan." Sophia laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. 4%? Sophia turned back to face them. "Victoria, you are under the impression that this is a negotiation. It isn't." Graham, the British COO, stepped forward and slid a thick document across the table. "This," Graham said, "is a surrender of ownership. It stipulates the immediate transfer of 60% of Sterling & Co. voting shares to Chimera Capital. It also demands the immediate resignation of the current CEO." Victoria looked at the document as if it were radioactive. "You want my company? You want to fire me? I built this." "You inherited it," Sophia corrected. "And then you ran it into the ground. Your Hudson Yards project is a disaster. Your supply chain is non-existent because I bought your suppliers. Your credit rating is junk because I called your loans. You have no leverage, Victoria. None." "I have the board," Victoria yelled. "They won't let you do this." "I am the board," Sophia said softly. "I bought the Caldwell's shares this morning." Victoria froze. "Preston? Preston sold to you?" "Preston Caldwell is a businessman. He saw a sinking ship, and I offered him a lifeboat. He sold his 15% stake to me at a premium. Combined with the debt-to-equity swap I'm about to trigger, I control 75% of your company." Sophia leaned over the table, her eyes locking onto Victoria's. "You called me a gold digger, Victoria. You said I was a moth to the flame, but you forgot one thing about moths. Sometimes they eat the clothes right off your back." She pointed to the pen on the document. "Sign it, or I foreclose tomorrow, liquidate the assets, and you leave with nothing, not even the Hamptons house. Because I checked. You used that as collateral for the bridge loan too." Victoria looked at Liam. "Do something. She was your..." Liam looked at Sophia. He looked at the woman who could buy and sell his entire existence. He saw the power radiating off her. "Mom," Liam whispered. "Sign it." "Liam!" "She's won, Mom," Liam said, his voice breaking. She owns everything. Just sign it before we lose the house." Victoria Sterling, the Iron Lady of New York real estate, began to shake. A single tear of pure rage rolled down her cheek. She picked up the pen. Her hand trembled as she scrawled her signature on the line that ended her career. Graham stepped in and snatched the document away. The second the ink was wet. "Thank you," Sophia said. "Security will escort you out. You have 1 hour to clear your desk at the Sterling offices. Personal items only. If you touch a single corporate file, I will have you arrested for industrial espionage." Victoria stood up. She looked small, old. "You're a monster," Victoria hissed. "I'm a businesswoman," Sophia replied. "And unlike you, I'm a good one." Victoria turned and fled the room, unable to bear the humiliation for another second. Liam stayed. The door clicked shut behind Victoria, leaving a ringing silence in the penthouse. Graham looked at Sophia. She gave a microscopic nod. He bowed his head and left the room, closing the double doors quietly. It was just Sophia and Liam. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Liam stared at the floor, at the polished concrete that probably cost more than his car. Sophia went back to her chair and sat down, watching him. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just tired. "Soph," Liam started, his voice cracking. He took a step forward. "Don't," Sophia said. She didn't raise her voice, but the command was absolute. "Don't call me that. That's not my name here." "Sophia," then, Liam said, wringing his hands. "Look, I didn't know. How could I know?" "You couldn't," Sophia said. "That was the point." "Then why are you punishing me?" Liam asked, finding a shred of courage. "My mother, she's impossible. You know that. I tried to defend you at dinner." "Did you?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "I seem to recall you sitting there, staring at your plate, while she called me a parasite. I seem to recall you asking me to prove I had a job. You didn't say, 'I love her, Mom,' and that's enough. You said, 'Tell her you work, Soph.'" Liam flinched. "I was in shock. She had that background check. And that's what matters to you, isn't it?" Sophia stood up and walked around the desk, leaning against the front of it. The paper, the resume, the pedigree. "No, I loved you." "You loved the idea of me," Sophia said, sadly. "You loved the quirky artist girl who looked up to you. You loved feeling like the provider. You loved being the prince, rescuing the pauper. But the moment that dynamic was threatened, the moment your mother questioned my value, you folded." She crossed her arms. "I have been looking for a partner, Liam, not a dependent. I hid my money because I wanted to know if a man could love me. Not the Vanderhoven fortune, not the jet, me. I did love you," Liam insisted, stepping closer. He reached for her hand. "I still do. We can fix this. You're rich? Great. That makes things easier, doesn't it? Mom can't say anything now. We can be together. We can be a power couple." Sophia pulled her hand away, as if he had burned her. "You really don't get it," she whispered. "You think this is about money? Isn't it?" Liam gestured to the room. "You just bought my family's company to prove a point." "I bought your company because it was a good investment at a distressed price," Sophia said coldly. "That's business. But us? We're done because of what happened on those steps." "What steps?" "When she kicked me out," Sophia said, her eyes flashing. "I stood on that driveway. I waited. I waited for you to walk out that door. I waited for you to say, 'If she goes, I go.' I would have taken you with me, Liam. I would have given you the world. I would have made you CEO of this company instead of firing your mother." Liam's jaw dropped. "But you didn't come out," Sophia continued. "You stayed inside. You chose the safety of the mansion. You chose the trust fund. You chose the status quo." She walked back to her chair and sat down, dismissing him with her posture. "You called me a gold digger, Liam. Or at least, you let her call me that. But look at us now." She gestured to herself, the bespoke suit, the office, the empire. Then she gestured to him, disheveled, panicked, his future uncertain. "I didn't need your gold," Sophia said softly. "I have my own. You were the one clinging to the sterling gold, because without it, you're terrified, you're nothing." Liam stood there, the truth hitting him like a physical blow. He realized, with a sickening lurch, that he had been testing her for worthiness, while he was the one failing the test. Sophia, Graham has a check for you in the lobby, Sophia said, opening her laptop. It's for the equity in your trust fund. I'm liquidating it as part of the restructure. You're cashed out. I don't want the money, Liam said. Take it, Sophia said, not looking up. Because as of tomorrow, I'm cutting off your allowance. It's time you learned what it's actually like to struggle for rent. Consider it. Character building. Please, Liam whispered. Goodbye, Liam. He waited for another moment, hoping for a crack in the ice, hoping for the girl who used to paint in the studio to come back. But that girl was gone. Or maybe she never existed. Liam turned and walked to the door. He felt heavier than he ever had in his life. He walked out of the office, past the silent assistants, and into the elevator. As the doors closed, Sophia finally looked up. She stared at the closed doors. She didn't cry. Leaders of empires didn't cry over bad investments. They wrote them off and moved on. She pressed the intercom button. Graham? Yes, ma'am? Get the PR team ready. I want a press conference at 9 a.m. We're announcing the rebranding of Sterling & Co. What are we calling it? Sophia smiled. A genuine, dangerous smile. Phoenix Industries. Because we're going to burn the old way down and build something new from the ashes. Understood. And, are you all right, Sophia? I'm fantastic, Graham, she said. I just saved myself a lifetime of disappointment. Get me the file on the Caldwell merger. I'm not done with them yet. She turned back to her screens. The numbers danced before her eyes. Profit, loss, margin, yield. These were things she could trust. These were things that never lied. But outside, the storm was just beginning. Because Victoria Sterling wasn't the type to go quietly into the night, and Sophia had just made an enemy with nothing left to lose. Exile did not suit Victoria Sterling. 2 weeks after being forcibly removed from her own building, she was pacing the floor of a suite at the Street Regis. It wasn't the penthouse, she couldn't afford that anymore, but she refused to downgrade to a standard room. She was burning through her personal savings at a terrifying rate, but appearances were the only currency she had left. Drink? Preston Caldwell asked, pouring himself a scotch from the minibar. He looked less like a titan of industry and more like a frightened rat. Put that away, Victoria snapped. We need a plan, Preston. That girl is dismantling my legacy. I heard she's rebranding. Phoenix Industries. It's an insult. She's mocking us. She owns the board, Victoria, Preston said, taking a gulp. She owns the debt. She owns the steel. There's nothing we can do. I sold my shares. I'm out. You should have taken the buyout. I will not take charity from a gutter snipe who tricked my son. Victoria hurled a vase across the room. It shattered against the wall. She humiliated me. She made me sign that paper. But she forgot one thing. What? She's new, Victoria said, her eyes narrowing. She's arrogant. She thinks because she has money, she understands construction. She doesn't know where the bodies are buried. Victoria grabbed her phone. She scrolled past the lawyers, who weren't returning her calls, until she found a number she hadn't used in 5 years. Garrett, she said, when the line connected. Mrs. Sterling? The voice was raspy. I haven't heard from you since the unions investigated the concrete pouring in. 18. I have a job for you, Victoria said, lowering her voice. The Hudson Yards site, the crane on the North Tower, the one Phoenix Industries is rushing to finish to prove they're competent. What about it? I recall you mentioning that the hydraulic pins on that model were temperamental. If they weren't maintained properly, there was a long silence on the other end. That could be catastrophic, Mrs. Sterling. People could get hurt. Make sure it happens at night, Victoria said coldly. When the shift changes, no casualties, just play structural failure. Enough to shut the site down, for months. Enough to tank the stock price of Phoenix Industries. Enough to make Sophia look incompetent and dangerous. It'll cost you. Double the usual rate. Done, Victoria said. Just do it tonight. I want to wake up to the news of her failure. Meanwhile, in the newly renovated offices of Phoenix Industries, Sophia was staring at a spreadsheet that didn't make sense. Graham? She called out. Come look at this. Graham walked over, setting down a stack of files. What is it? More unpaid invoices? No, Sophia said, frowning. It's the pension fund. Victoria was pulling money out of the employee retirement accounts for the last 3 years. She was funneling it into a shell company called VS Holdings in the Caymans. Graham adjusted his glasses. That's embezzlement. That's federal prison time. She was using it to pay for the Hamptons house and the jet, Sophia realized. She wasn't just bad at business, Graham. She was stealing from her own workers to keep up appearances. If this gets out, suddenly Sophia's personal phone buzzed. It was Silas, her head of security. Miss Vanderhoven, Silas said, his voice urgent. We have a breach at the Hudson Yard site. My team spotted a man messing with the crane hydraulics. We detained him. Sophia's blood ran cold. Who is he? Name's Garrett. He's a former contractor. He's singing like a canary, ma'am. He says Victoria Sterling paid him to sabotage the rig. Sophia closed her laptop. The air in the room shifted from investigative curiosity to absolute freezing rage. She tried to drop a crane on my site? Sophia whispered. He says the order was to cause a catastrophic failure to tank the stock, Silas reported. We have him on tape confessing. Sophia stood up. She walked to the window. She looked out at the city she loved, the city Victoria Sterling had treated like a playground. Graham, Sophia said. Yes, Sophia? Call the district attorney. Call the FBI. And call the press. You want to file charges? No, Sophia said, turning around. Her eyes were hard as diamonds. I want to end this. Tonight. Send an invite to every major news outlet. Tell them Phoenix Industries is holding an emergency press conference regarding criminal negligence at the former Sterling & Co. And send a VIP invitation to the Street Regis Hotel for Victoria. She won't come if she thinks she's being arrested, Graham pointed out. Don't tell her she's being arrested, Sophia said. Tell her I'm resigning. Tell her the pressure is too much, and I want to hand the company back. Graham smiled. It was a shark's smile. She'll be there with bells on. The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was packed. Flashbulbs popped like lightning storms. Every major financial reporter in New York was there. In the front row, wearing a silver gown that cost more than most cars, sat Victoria Sterling. Beside her was Liam, looking uncomfortable in a suit that was slightly too big for him now that he'd lost 10 pounds from stress. Victoria was beaming. She whispered to Liam, I told you. She couldn't handle the pressure. She's a child playing dress-up. Tonight, we take it all back. Liam didn't answer. He just stared at the empty podium. The lights dimmed. Sophia walked out. She wasn't wearing a gown. She was wearing a simple black turtleneck and trousers. She looked like Steve Jobs, mixed with a predator. She walked to the microphone, placed a single folder on the podium, and looked directly at Victoria. Thank you all for coming, Sophia said. Her voice was amplified, crisp, and clear. When I acquired Sterling & Co. 2 weeks ago, I did so with the intention of saving a legacy. I thought I was buying a distressed company. She paused. I was wrong. I was buying a crime scene. The room went silent. Victoria's smile faltered. Over the last 48 hours, Sophia continued, my team has uncovered a systematic embezzlement scheme dating back 5 years. The previous administration looted $50 million from the employee pension fund to finance personal luxuries. The reporters gasped. Phones were raised. Questions were shouted. Lies! Victoria stood up, her face turning purple. She's lying. She's trying to slander me. Sophia didn't flinch. She pressed a button on the podium. The massive screen behind her lit up. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a video. Grainy, night vision footage showed a man, Garrett, being held by security guards at the construction site. Voice on tape. Why were you cutting the line, Garrett? Garrett. She paid me. Victoria Sterling paid me. She said she wanted the stock to crash. She said to break the crane. The ballroom erupted. It was chaos. Victoria stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth. She looked around, realizing the trap had snapped shut. Victoria Sterling, Sophia said, her voice cutting through the noise. You didn't just steal from your workers. You attempted to sabotage a live construction site You risked the lives of my employees to satisfy your ego. The side doors of the ballroom burst open. 6 FBI agents in windbreakers marched in. Victoria Sterling, the lead agent shouted, you are under arrest for embezzlement, corporate espionage, and conspiracy to commit endangerment. Victoria screamed as they grabbed her. Get your hands off me. I am a Sterling. Liam, tell them. Liam stood up. He looked at his mother, struggling in the handcuffs. He looked at the video of the man who could have killed innocent workers. Then, he looked at Sophia. She was watching him, her face unreadable. Liam! Victoria shrieked as they dragged her toward the exit. Help me! Liam shook his head slowly. I can't, Mom. You did this. He sat back down and put his head in his hands. As the doors closed on Victoria's screams, Sophia turned back to the microphone. The Sterling name is dead, she announced. From today, all assets are seized by Phoenix Industries. We will replenish the pension fund from my personal reserves. No worker will lose a dime, and we will build, not for vanity, but for the future. She walked off the stage. 3 months later, the coffee shop on 4th and Main was crowded. It was raining. Sophia sat in the back corner, wearing a hoodie and reading a book. She looked like anyone else, except for the security detail, sitting 2 tables away. The bell rang. Liam walked in. He looked different. He was wearing work boots and a canvas jacket. He looked tired, but he looked real. He saw her. He hesitated, then walked over. Security didn't tackle me, he said, offering a weak smile. I told them to let you through, Sophia said. She closed her book. Hello, Liam. I saw the quarterly report, Liam said. Phoenix stock is up 20%. You actually saved the pension fund. It was the right thing to do, Sophia said. I wanted to give you this. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. It was wrinkled. Sophia looked at it. It was the buyout check she had given him. The millions for his trust fund. I haven't cashed it, Liam said. I don't want it. Why? Because it feels like hush money or pity money. Liam looked down at his boots. I got a job. A real one. I'm working in logistics for a shipping company in Jersey. Entry level. It sucks. But I pay my own rent. Sophia looked at him. For the first time in months, her eyes softened. You're paying your own rent? She asked. Yeah, it's a studio. Smaller than the one you pretended to live in, but it's mine. He pushed the check toward her. Take it back. I don't want to be a Sterling anymore. I just want to be Liam. Sophia looked at the check. Then she looked at Liam. She saw the boy she had fallen in love with, finally emerging from the shell of his mother's expectations. She picked up the check. She ripped it in half, then in quarters. Good, Sophia said. Does this mean? Liam started, hope flaring in his eyes. Does this mean I have a chance? Can we start over? Coffee? For real this time? Sophia stood up. She gathered her bag. She looked at Liam, and for a second, she considered it. She remembered the Coney Island hot dogs. She remembered his laugh, but then she remembered the dinner. She remembered the silence when she needed him most. I'm proud of you, Liam, Sophia said gently. Really. You're finally becoming the man I thought you were. She placed a hand on his shoulder. But I'm not the same woman anymore. I'm not looking for a project. I'm running an empire. She pulled away. Keep the coffee, she said, and keep working. You'll find someone. Someone who doesn't know who you used to be. Sophia walked out into the rain. Her driver opened the door of the black SUV. She slid inside. Where to, Miss Vanderhoven? Silas asked. Sophia looked out the window. She saw Liam sitting in the coffee shop, watching her go. He looked sad, but he didn't look broken. He looked like he was just starting. The airport, Silas, Sophia said, opening her laptop. We have a merger in Tokyo to close. The car pulled away, disappearing into the city lights. Sophia didn't look back. She had gold to dig, but not the kind found in the ground. The kind you build, brick by brick, until no one can ever tear you down again. And that is how Sophia Vanderhoven turned a breakup into a billion-dollar acquisition. Victoria Sterling thought she could judge a book by its cover, but she ended up getting crushed by the whole library. In the end, Sophia didn't just get revenge. She got justice for the employees, saved a company, and forced Liam to finally grow up, even if she didn't stay to hold his hand. What do you think? Did Sophia go too far by destroying the mother? Or did Victoria get exactly what she deserved? And was she too hard on Liam at the end? Or was walking away the ultimate power move? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of corporate karma, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story. See you in the next one.